Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm showing you today how to make the viral cottage cheese flatbread. To me it looks more like a wrap than a flatbread, but I thought I would give it a shot and see how it tastes. I'm always trying to cut down on my processed carbs and eat a little bit of a higher protein diet, so I thought this would be a perfect fit. And it's so simple, you just need 2 ingredients and then you can add on some other things. So I thought, what's the harm in trying? So all I have here is 2% cottage cheese, and then 2 eggs. That's it. That's the base of the ingredient. And then my handy dandy old school food processor. You can also use like a blender if you have that. So all you need to do is measure out 1 cup of cottage cheese. And add that in. That's pretty easy. And then 2 eggs. You can always crack your eggs on a separate bowl and then put it in just in case you're worried about any shells going in. But we're gonna live on the wild side and just do it straight in the food processor. And this is where you can really make the recipe your own. You can add your own herbs and spices. I wanted to do garlic powder, but I ran out of garlic powder, but I have some onion powder here that I'm gonna add in. I'm gonna do about half a teaspoon. And I was originally thinking of adding some salt because usually bread has salt in it, but cottage cheese has quite high amount of salt in it, and so I don't think that's needed. So I added a little bit of onion powder, and I'm gonna mix it. If you have some chives or anything, that would be really nice too. We're just gonna mix it until everything's nice and combined. Then what you want to do is take a baking sheet and line it with some parchment paper, and put this to the side. Take the batter and pour it on a baking sheet, line with some parchment paper. I'm gonna do an experiment. I'm just gonna do half of it this way, just plain, with just the onion powder, and I'm gonna do the other half, and I have some grated pecorino romano here that I'm gonna add into the mixture. I feel like it's gonna add a lot of flavor, and I think it might help with the texture as well. And then also I think it'll help it stick together and have a better texture. And really, cheese makes everything better, so why not? So I have about half a cup of pecorino romano cheese grated here, and I'm gonna add that in and mix it one more time. Enough. This to the side, and I'm pouring the other half with the cheese mixture. I'm adding that on the other side, and I think it'll be nice to compare the two. It's already a little bit thicker, so let's see how it's gonna work out. And then you want to just spread it so it's nice and thin and even. I feel like this one is kind of doing its thing. It's kind of already even. I'm just gonna try and make a little bit more square so it's easier to use in a sandwich afterwards. I think that's good enough. And then I'm gonna do the same with this one. I'm just gonna spread it out. I feel like this one with the cheese is a little bit thicker than this one, so I'm curious to see how that's gonna bake up. Now the only thing left to do is bake it in the oven. I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit on convection. I feel like this recipe would do well with convection because the air is circulating and helping it cook more evenly. I'm gonna pop it in the oven for about 30 minutes. Okay, so this is what it came out looking like. The one that's just the egg and the cottage cheese. Kind of burnt most of it. And this one didn't fare too badly with the one with the cheese inside. And it's actually it's like still hot out of the oven, so I'm gonna let it cool for a second, and then I'm gonna try peeling it off. This side here that has the cheese, I feel like it's coming off the parchment paper a lot easier. And on this side, where it's just the just the egg, it's not too bad. I'm gonna make it into a sandwich, but I'm curious to try it and see how it tastes. This is the one with the cheese. Surprisingly not bad. It's nice and cheesy, and I like the addition of the onion powder. And let me try the other side without the cheese. It's actually not bad either. I wouldn't call it a flatbread, but like if you're gonna use it as a wrap, I think it's a really good substitute. But I'm pretty surprised, like just the egg and cottage cheese one turned out pretty good. And the flavor's pretty good too. Okay, so surprisingly, the one without the cheese is faring better. Look how much more flexible it is. Actually, I gave some to my little girl just now and she ate most of it. She loved it. So it's really quite yummy all on its own. But this is how what the cheese is doing. It looked like it was unsticking better in the beginning, but it's breaking apart now. So I don't think I can really make a sandwich out of it. Maybe I can use it as like a dip or just a snack like that. I'm gonna make one more batch. I'm gonna make just the standard cottage cheese and eggs, and I'm gonna add the onion powder, and I'm gonna show you guys how I'll make that into a sandwich, because obviously the one with the cheese tastes delicious. Honestly, I'm snacking on it right now and it's amazing, but it's not very flexible and it's breaking apart. So I will be back one more time after I've done my second batch. This is my second batch. I think the trick to this is to have it even and be thin, but not too thin. So I'm gonna spread it out a little bit. So it's a fine balance. Try not to have it too thick. So at this point, I think it's evenly spread, but it's too thick. I'm just gonna spread it out a little bit so it stays flexible after it's baked. And I have realized, I think if you have a silicone mat, that would fare better than the parchment paper, because the parchment paper gets wet and it kind of ends up sitting funny. But I think that if you have a silicone mat, that would be much better. Just came out of the oven and it came out perfect. What I do have to say is this time around, I didn't bake it on convection. I just baked it on normal 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think that was my issue initially. I thought that baking it on convection would help it, but I think it dried it out and it just ended up breaking. So I'm gonna make a little wrap out of this with some cream cheese and a little smoked salmon. It'll be delicious. I'm making this into a smoked salmon wrap, but really it's such a blank canvas. You can really make anything out of this. It does not have to be smoked salmon. It could be any kind of sandwich. If you like this video, please give it a like, leave a comment down below if you end up trying this recipe, and feel free to subscribe. I make new videos every Friday on cooking, cleaning, and general homemaking. So if that's something you enjoy, I would love for you to join us.